Good evening. This is the North Andover Board of Health's meeting, a virtual meeting. I'm Joe McCarthy, the chairman. It's 7 p.m. Thursday, July the 23rd. And before we open the meeting, I want to read a statement from the governor. And this will take a minute or two. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the North Andover Board of Health will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information in the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with the right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be forwarded on the town's website at www.northandoverma.gov. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so on their televisions by turning to Comcast Channel 8 or Verizon Channel 26 or online at www.northandovercam.org. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately assess the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the Town of North Andover's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. If the public would like to participate in the public hearings, please email your questions, comments prior to or during the meeting to blagrasse@northandoverma.gov. That is blagrasse@northandoverma.gov. The question comment will be read during the proceedings and responded to accordingly. Want to go over those that are present right now. I do want to start with Deanna Lima. She's the Community Support Coordinator. And after I go over the list of attendees, I will turn it over to her. The Health Department staff, and welcome present, Brian LaGrasse.
I'm here.
Steve Casey, Jr., he's the Health Inspector.
I'm here.
Callan Iverson, she's the Public Health Nurse.
I'm here.
Tony Wolfenden, Health Department Assistant.
She's here. She can't. Her microphone's not working, but
No problem at all. Daphne LaFleur, Board of Health member.
I'm here.
And Patrick Scanlon, excuse me, a Board of Health member. He's also the town physician. Correct me if I'm mistaken, Patrick.
That's correct. I'm present.
Well, congratulations on that. Okay, as I said, joining us is Deanna Lima. She's a Community Support Coordinator. And to date, the Department of Health and the Board of Health have focused on regulations to help keep people safe from the coronavirus. Deanna will focus on more the psychological aspects of this virus. You know, there has been some concern that what we're doing, although it appears to be warranted, it's really tough for some people, particularly older people. And at that, Deanna, I will turn it over to you. You have all the time that you need, and then we'll go through the regular meeting. So it's all yours.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me at the meeting so we can discuss some of these very important topics. So certainly one of the concerns that everybody has had from the beginning of this pandemic and the lockdown has really been the impact that isolation is going to have on individuals, especially people that were already isolated, as well as all of the other expected impacts that we're going to have on our mental health. But, I want to really give folks an idea of what the reality has been on the impact on our mental health and behavioral health in general. So you all probably are familiar with the food bank that we have had in North Andover since really the first week of the lockdown. We started the food bank. It just ended a week or two ago in the form that we have had it. We still have resources available for people who need them. They just look a little bit different now. We have reached thousands of, well, I don't want to say thousands of people, but on a weekly basis, we have provided food to thousands of people. Obviously, they have been repeat folks that have come to us week after week who've had repeated need. So we are really looking at, we're not quite at the level of dealing with people's emotional needs to the degree that we will be in the future. So right now, we're still dealing with the acute nature of the pandemic, even in the social emotional needs that we're seeing in the community. So we're really looking at folks struggling to meet their basic needs in a lot of ways. I don't know if there's who is running the meeting, but can somebody share my screen if I put something up? Can somebody do that?
I will do my best.
I just put up a, can anybody see that?
Is it in the chat?
I just put up a, I just put up an illustration.
I cannot see that.
No.
Nope.
All right. Well, never mind that. Well, what I was attempting to project was an illustration of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I don't know if anybody remembers that from their intro to psychology days. Maslow was a psychologist who researched from the humanistic perspective, and that's the idea that all individuals strive to do more and to achieve and excel based on the need to just go to the next level in our existence. And the bottom most basic level, so he structured our needs in the form of a pyramid, and the most basic level of need being physiological needs, so food, shelter, water. And we have seen that a lot of people who may have been at higher levels, working at achieving other levels of need, fell down to that most basic level of need because of loss of employment, financial distress. They were faced with trying to find ways to feed their families, to pay their mortgages, to pay rent, to, pay other bills. So when faced with those most basic needs, people are not yet at the point of worrying about the other levels, which are safety, love and belongingness, sense of community, self-actualization. So as we're moving forward and people's basic needs are met, their safety needs are met, then we're going to start seeing people being in greater levels of distress once they're moving forward in having all their needs met. And I expect that as we see in the fall, whether children go to school or not, we're going to see a much greater level of distress when kids are faced with the reality of ongoing isolation from their friend groups, or just a whole different way of relating with their peers long term. So at this point, everything seems to be rather acute. But once things become more normalized in this pandemic, then I think we'll see more of the mental health needs emerge. So the calls that I've been getting thus far, and calls have increased. I get about 4 to 5 calls on average a day from residents. Certainly the needs have been exacerbated by the pandemic, but the needs are all related to issues that were already there, but have been worsened by the pandemic. So folks who had food insecurity, folks who were isolated because of illness or a lot of issues. I think I may have mentioned this the last time I spoke to you folks. Seniors who are isolated and lack social supports, that certainly has become worse with the pandemic. So a lot of what I'm seeing now is either the people who have their basic needs not met in mass, or folks who already had issues and they've become worse because of the pandemic. So I really think that it's going to be in the next 3 to 6 months that we're seeing individuals with specific social emotional needs emerge because of this pandemic. I haven't seen it come to my attention yet.
Thank you. Can you tell those that are listening how you can be reached?
Yeah, most definitely. So, because the town offices are closed, it's difficult. The walk-in option isn't available. So I can be reached via email, which is DLIMA@northandoverma.gov, or my office phone is 978-794-1703. My cell phone is 978-989-1048. And I have an office at Town Hall. I have an office at the police department. I am at the senior center regularly. So certainly folks can try and reach me at any one of those buildings and leave a message for me, and I will return the call.
Consistent with what you just said, looking at an article 2 days ago in the Wall Street Journal, and it'll just take me 30 seconds to go through part of it. It says quarantining the elderly is harmful to their health. And it says living alone with little social interaction is often implicated in high rate of cardiovascular and other types of diseases, worsening dementia and Alzheimer's, and shortened lives. We try to an extent to talk about aspects of such doing a monthly, and often we have several meetings a month because there are many elements. I'm going to turn over in a few minutes back to Brian. He'll be talking about the regulations and what we are not doing, what is and what is not being opened. But this is a real issue, and also as a member of the Town Council on Aging, I'm very, very concerned because a lot of our senior center is their umbilical cord to civilization, to reality. And they don't have that. Not only do they not have that, but our town hall has been closed since the 16th of March. So it's very, very difficult. And you also mentioned schools too. Listen to the news at 6 o'clock tonight. Proposed Republican economic stimulus package calls for spending $1,200 per child in K to 12 to make schools safer from the coronavirus. That'd be about $5 million in North Andover because we have an excess of 4,000 students. So it's a proposed package. I don't know how it's going to wash out, but it certainly would help tremendously to make our schools that much safer. Bye-bye.
I want to speak to the issue with isolated seniors. Certainly the seniors that are not able to attend the senior center as they had previously are missing out on a huge component of socialization. And we see, there's all the research shows us that cognitive stimulation is critical for good health in our elder years. My biggest shock, however, in being so involved with the senior population through the pandemic has been seeing the large, well, I consider it large, I don't know, it's larger than I would want it to be, group of seniors in our community who are homebound anyway, outside of the pandemic because of their medical issues, because they're frail, because they don't have the means, they don't have transportation or the means to get out of their homes. And it's been shocking that in our community there are so many seniors that are isolated, and the same goes for families. It's really I've had the privilege of being able to connect the residents in North Andover who have been so generous and so gracious in helping their neighbors with those that are in need. And there are so many people in North Andover who are isolated and in need because of circumstances that aren't going to go away after the pandemic and aren't going to go away with funding that is temporary and transitional. So I think it's an important thing for us as a community to remember that all of this wonderful rallying and coming together is something that needs to be sustained and maintained in order to keep the community functioning long term. It's important for the livelihood of the community, not just in times of crisis.
Thank you again. You're welcome to remain for the remainder of the meeting. Does anyone have any questions for Diana Lima on the board of the department?
I do. So looking forward in 3 to 6 months, what would you recommend we do now to start getting ready for what we're going to see, or what you think we could see down the road? Any ideas? Any suggestions?
Yeah. So I have been working with providers who I know are open now, so mental health providers who are accepting new clients, who are still seeing clients, and maintaining relationships with those practices who are still taking new clients. And I think it's important for us to create a network of providers that we can continue to refer to, because as the need is going to increase, certainly there's going to be an increased burden, and relationships are what makes the difference. So definitely, it's been something that we've talked about in my department when I had my wonderful interns. We had talked about really how to reach out to all the mental health providers in the North Andover community and bring them together and get a sense of who can do more for those in the community who maybe can't get outside of North Andover, like the elderly or the families that don't have transportation or that type of thing. So I think this would be a good time for us to perhaps reach out to our local providers and build more relationships.
All right. Anything you think we can do to get the word out to some of the targeted population that you want to try to help with the outreach? Can we do something like a mailing or something to the senior center and their
I think we've
list
been it's the most amazing thing that was completely serendipitous was the involvement over with the food bank, the involvement of the school nurses. So Kathleen Pease and all the other school nurses working with Caroline. I mean, we now have this network really of the community piece with the school piece, and they're on their much deserved vacation right now. But we certainly are back and forth now with who needs resources and who has resources to fill the needs. So I think that's a critical piece that is in place and will continue to be in place. So and Caroline has been really in that mix as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
Any other
Anybody
questions?
else?
This is Daphne. I just wanted pretty much a comment to Deanna. I've had the pleasure of meeting her throughout this pandemic, and you and your team are doing an awesome job. And I totally agree, and would piggyback, being that I have experience with the senior population in my line of work, doing more grassroots, and the plan that you guys are doing grassroots and door to door is the way to go and the way to reach them. I know sometimes, based on experience, sometimes when you mail things to seniors, it gets lost in file 99. So I just want to say thank you for everything you're doing in the community throughout this whole pandemic.
And thank you, Daphne, for everything that you've done to help us. It was amazing to have extra resources to bring out to the community. People just, people were really pleased, and it's amazing the outpouring of support that we've had in the community. So thank you, and thank you to everyone else who has provided support as well.
My
When
pleasure.
When I was at Town Hall, I didn't go in the building, but I did go there today. I met Tony outside to sign some stuff. I noticed that on the left side of the front, that walkway towards and into the senior center on the second floor, there were several elderly people whom I never seen them before, but they were just sitting there, and my heart was just bleeding for them. I just felt like that they're so lonely. You know, they wanted to get in, they wanted to socialize. What are they sitting there for? You know, and that's I think I might have been wrong, but I know it's been tough on particularly seniors,
Well,
and there are more than 6,000 of us in North Andover. That's a lot.
I have to tell you, the senior center staff has done an amazing job on a daily basis. The staff reaches out to all the regular participants of the senior center and checks on them. So the seniors are being contacted and connected with, and we're doing what we can to meet their needs. And the senior center staff is absolutely reaching out and making sure that everybody is having some contact on a regular basis. They're amazing. They're amazing in that regard.
No, that's great to hear.
Well, thank you again. And before I turn it over to Brian, I just want to, because this is an official meeting, we do have a quorum. The approval of the meeting minutes on May 28th. At that time, I was the clerk, and now I'm the chairman. The new clerk, Michelle Davis, and we both critique these meetings. And I need a motion either from Daphne or Patrick to approve them.
Motion.
Okay. Needs to be seconded. Daphne?
Yeah, mute.
Oh, she's on mute?
I apologize. I second that motion. Yes, I was
There you go.
muted.
Okay, well, that's a quorum right there. So these meeting minutes have been approved. Thank you again, Deanna. Stay with us if you want. And at that, it is all yours now, Brian.
Thank you. Thank you, Deanna. Good seeing you. You need anything, you know where I am. So anytime. All right.
We'll have you back again, too, by the way.
Okay.
Yep. All right. Hi, everybody. Good to see you all. It's been a little while since our last meeting, but we're here again. So just want to go through a quick rundown of some of the numbers for you guys, just a picture of what we're seeing over here. I know you guys hear about the numbers all the time, and they're probably on the news just about every night, but just to give you some comparison with now versus like 2 months ago. Mass numbers, we had 192 cases in the state yesterday out of 11,000 tests. So 1.8% positive test rate, which is really good. We have 107,000 total in Massachusetts. And it seems like we shot out real fast at the beginning, where they were doing several thousand a day, and we skyrocketed right up to 100,000, and then it's completely tapered off over the last month and a half. And it's been kind of steady right around that mark for a while now. Massachusetts had 18 deaths in the state, and there are currently 532 hospitalizations across Massachusetts. Right now, Holy Family has 1 COVID patient and 0 COVID patients in the ICU. Lawrence General Hospital has 18 COVID patients, and 3 in the ICU. Each hospital has over 20 or 24 ICU beds. not including surge capacity. So our numbers have been going in the right direction for a couple months now. Definitely trending that way, and this is through 3.1 phases. 2 months ago, what we were seeing was 2,000 to 2,500 positive cases per day at a 20 or 30% test rate. We were seeing 200 plus deaths a day, and we had almost 4,000 hospitalizations at one point. And we were pushing our surge capacity to the brink at that point. I think last meeting, the last Board of Health meeting we had a month ago, we had 937 hospitalizations at that point. So we've cut that in half even in the last month, which is fantastic. So basically, I mean, we flattened the curve here in Mass, and in the whole Northeast as a whole. So New England, New York, New Jersey have all kind of flattened off, leveled everything off, and we're looking pretty good. The numbers over the last week in Massachusetts were the day before, yesterday was 165 positive cases, then 174, 218, 177, 216, 143, and 142. So we've been at this level for a while, for probably about a month, where it's pushing at right around 200 or below. Basically, the mask orders and the social distancing have proven to be effective. So another factor is also the testing capacity. Finding asymptomatic carriers and contact tracing is essential tools in what we're doing and keeping our numbers low and mitigating the pandemic. Mass has just launched their Stop the Spread campaign, where they set up 8 testing sites across the state to do free testing in areas that have been hit hard and still have higher numbers than the state averages. Lawrence General Hospital is the closest one to us. Lawrence was a hard hit community, so they put it at Lawrence General, and they do the free testing Monday through Friday, 9 to 4:30, and you can call. They have a number set aside for this. It's 978-946-8409 to call and set up an appointment. So by eliminating the asymptomatic carriers from the population, giving them their isolation instructions and giving them the resources to do that will help keep the community spread virus down. Another one thing that we're seeing too currently is a little bit of a lag in some of the testing for positive notifications. I think the spikes across the country are taxing the lab capacity in some of the national labs, like Quest and LabCorp, that have centralized labs that people send their samples to. In-house testing, like at Lawrence General and Holy Family, are still keeping up. But sites that send their stuff to the labs in different states, it's taking a lot longer to get the results back, which is a problem in places that are having huge spikes, because if your test doesn't come back for 4 or 5 days, that person doesn't know. And if they don't know, they might not abide by certain protocols they should be taking, which is obviously what you want to avoid. Right now, we are in phase 3, step 1. Phase 3 has been divided into 2 steps, just like phase 2 was. Step 1 in phase 3 started on July 6th. So we've had it going for a couple weeks now. Step 1 has allowed more areas to open up and more businesses to open. It still does limit occupancy and numbers of people that can actually gather. But phase 3, step 1 allows things like indoor recreational facilities, gyms, fitness centers, casinos, museums, outdoor theater performances, movie theaters, outdoor event spaces, small events indoors as well, and indoor classes for vocational schools and things like that are starting to do small classes. Outdoor events, they do have limits on some of these things. So an organized outdoor gathering should be limited to, or in the order is limited to 100 people, including staff. So a small wedding. And then small indoor events are limited to 25 people. So if you have a meeting or if you have any type of indoor class, you can have 25 people. Obviously, the mask orders are in place, and when you're in these areas, you need to wear masks, things like that. But we've been working really closely with the businesses and to implement those guidelines and kind of help them figure out their own protocols to get their things up and running. Like the Stevens Estate can now do small functions again. So things are starting to open up. We've been working with them on PPE as well. The town implemented a program where businesses could come and get 250 free masks and hand sanitizer. gloves if they wanted them, things like that, that the town did do through a COVID grant funding that the community development director got. So that's really good. That's been very well received around town and in the business community. I mean, obviously we get complaints on people not wearing masks or signage or things like that. So we've been following up on those, trying to keep up and make sure that everybody is abiding by the mask orders and things like that. I guess I did anticipate that there would have been small bumps up in our numbers going through these opening phases. We haven't seen that yet. It's kind of surprising, just knowing how viruses work, and the more people that are out and about, more people that are getting together, the increased virus transmission would be. It's that the R value is still under 1, which is why we're still staying with our low numbers. Regionally, we have seen a shift, and I've talked to some of the other health directors in the Northeast, where they're seeing the average age of the people being infected are actually getting younger. So we're seeing 20s, 30s, and 40s, whereas before we were seeing the 70s, 80s, and 90s. It may have been there was more limited testing back then, and they were testing people that were symptomatic, which tends to be your seniors and your elderly that do show the symptoms and do have more severe complications. So that may be part of it, but I think a lot of it is people are actually going out more, and the younger populations may think they're more invincible. So I had a few conversations, like I said, across the region about trying to target and message some of the younger age groups. So if you see anything, if you have any ideas on that, let me know. We will work on targeting these age groups. We did that actually 4th of July. We got out something basically for everybody that, okay, 4th of July is here. Be careful, social distance, wear your masks. We're not through this yet. We're still working on it. So we don't want to take any steps backwards. We want to keep up with the progress that we've been having and the success we've been having moving forward. Phase 3, step 2 will be coming around sooner rather than later, I believe. There's no set date. It's all driven by the numbers and the data. But the public health metrics that they're looking at are all looking really good. I think testing capacity across the nation needs to improve a little bit, and they're working on that. And even the governor said the other day that they are working with these corporations on increasing their capacity to address the turnaround time and the lag that they're seeing in the positive results. So I guess so, yeah, before I pass it off to Caroline, I'd just like to basically say that the 4 things that have been super successful is the mask, social distancing, hand washing, and abiding by the guidance. So I want to keep up with that. If you guys have any ideas, like I said, let me know, and we will work on that. So I'll pass it off to Caroline so she can talk about our local numbers, and we'll go from there.
Thanks. So just to piggyback on some of the things that Brian was saying, so as far as the numbers, we have definitely had a decline. So for what we are seeing in our town, we're at 361 total cases. To break that down like month to month, so we're officially like in month 4. So the first case that we saw, I just kind of went through and just went, okay, so from mid-March to mid-April, and so on, how many cases did we see? So like that first month, we saw about 137 new cases. Second month, 137, actually, exactly. And then month 3, we saw 66. And then the last month, we've had about 21 new cases. I think a lot of the bulk of those older populations that we were seeing was some of the mass testing that they would be doing at the long-term care facilities, which they're not doing right now. So initially they would come in, they would test the whole facility, whether they had symptoms or not. So a lot of people who were testing positive and were asymptomatic, that was, in the numbers there. Right now, like the last 20 cases we had, the majority of those cases, I think we're 41 to age 60, we had 8 cases. And then from 0 to 20, we had 3. And then 21 to 40, we had 3. So I think some of that is, the fact that everything is opening up. And I do think the quarantine piece is hard because I think when everything was closed down and no one had the ability to go anywhere and, there was nothing really going on and the weather was kind of iffy, it was a little, and it was fresh. And so I think everyone understood the reason why we're doing it. And I think as months have gone on and the weather has gotten nicer and things have opened up, it's gotten harder for people, to completely quarantine, I think is some of the piece as well. So just continuing to get the reminder out there of the importance of it. And, if you're vacationing out of state down in Florida, to quarantine when you come back. So we've been trying to continue to get that message out. As far as other numbers, we, like I said, have a total of 361 and our recovered is 323. We have one active case right now and a total of 37 deaths. The last month, since our numbers have been a little bit lower, it seems like I'm spending more time on probable cases. And the reason for that is the antibody testing and the antigen testing has started to increase a little bit. And if those come back positive, those are considered probable cases. So a positive antigen test, we treat like a confirmed case. And so we do everything the same as far as isolation, quarantining of close contacts, and the contact tracing and whatnot. So that's been taking up a bulk of the last few weeks. I've also been working with the schools, Merrimack Brooks, and the public schools, just kind of trying to go through different scenarios as far as reopening the schools, what they should be looking at for testing. I think the guidance is not coming fast enough because, colleges go back to school in a month, and they're just trying to plan out how they're going to, test people, how are they going to deal with symptomatics cases, and then, you have the whole commuter piece, the boarding piece. So there's just a lot of different scenarios that we have been working through. And I'm trying to think. I also have just the normal other communicable diseases that I'm working on other than COVID. It is tick season. We've seen a handful of anaplasmosis in the community, and kind of ramping up and trying to wrap my head around getting ready for flu season. So I think that's all for I have on the town side and my side.
Awesome.
If there's any questions,
Thank Any questions? Then we'll pass it off to Steve. Your turn.
All right. So I've been kind of doing a lot of the same as I've mentioned in the previous meetings. I've been trying to take any questions or concerns we get via the phone or while I'm in person out in the field, and just give as much info and feedback as I can, regardless of if it's COVID-19 related or just general inquiries related to things like food permits and other aspects of our job. I've been responding to complaints, kind of like Brian said, as we get them. Predominantly the ones we're seeing are mass complaints. I think those are the ones that everyone just kind of recognizes off the bat. However, I usually try and use these if it's like a business, for example, to push the PPE kit Brian had mentioned that was developed by Andrew Shapiro, just making people aware of it, that they can get these masks, and I think it's bottles of hand sanitizer as well for their business at pretty much no cost to them as long as they're eligible. Those are still available too for anyone who is looking for them. Brian and I drafted some PSAs. We made a phase 3 stage 1 update. And the 4th of July reminder, like he mentioned, basically just saying, we know it's the holidays. We want you guys to celebrate responsibly, but we also just want to make sure we keep all the practices that got us to this place in place, like social distancing, mask use, hand washing, things of that nature. And as Caroline talked about too, we threw together a PSA just because it is tick and mosquito season, on just tips to avoid them and precautions to take to basically protect yourself. Inspection wise, I mean, I've been kind of getting back to normal to a certain degree. We've been doing a good amount of septic inspections. We've been doing pool inspections as well. We did do a lot less than usual because the EEA guidance that came out from the state specific to pools was tough to meet for some establishments. So they were if they were unable to meet it, basically they weren't able to open. But we did open, I want to say, about 4 currently. I've been doing housing inspections too. Our mobile food trucks, most of them have been inspected as well as one ice cream truck. But that's about the gist of it, and then just obviously helping out wherever else I can. So.
Great job. Awesome. Turn it over to the board. Maybe you guys can give us some updates and let us know what you're seeing in your fields.
Hey, Brian, question for you. Has the governor said anything further about with Maine, visitors to from Massachusetts to Maine, why Maine is kind of putting Massachusetts and Rhode Island to the side, even though our numbers are good, but allowing New York, New Jersey, Vermont, New Hampshire residents in?
You know, I have not heard about that or heard why. So I don't know the details or the specifics on that. But it would be interesting to look into and find out why. I know that some of the places you have to get tested to go into is actually kind of successful in finding asymptomatic cases. There was a prominent one that was sent around the other day. Town manager in a neighboring town was going to go to Maine for vacation and went and got tested and found out that he was positive. He had no idea. He was completely asymptomatic. And that was sent around to some of the local channels. So I think, you know what? Testing is one of the tools we have. Use it. I think Massachusetts should require the exact same thing for anybody coming in. Get tested.
Hopefully they'll change the way the testing is done, and it'll be by a mouth swab as opposed to a nasopharyngeal swab.
Yep. And turnaround time, very important.
Yes.
All right. So what's going on up in your neck of the woods?
We have one ICU patient, a total of 2 positive patients in the hospital right now. Otherwise, in New Hampshire, it is fairly quiet, I'd have to say. Not that I don't want to say the bad word of quiet, but
Yeah.
For the most part, it's actually been relatively stable for at least the last month.
Good to hear. Very good to hear.
Patrick, this is Joe. I have a question for you. I had read that at nursing homes, to protect the residents, the government has a program. I don't know if it's been implemented yet, to test, I believe it's an antigen test, all employees and visitors before entering nursing homes. And they're tested and the results are back within 15 minutes. It's like building a wall around the most vulnerable people that we have, our seniors. But I've also read that this test these antigen tests are just not that good, just not that reliable. There was an article in the Globe today about misreading many such tests in Vermont. Can you comment on that at all?
There isn't actually much data about the antigen test. Nobody is really promoting the antigen test. It's essentially either a PCR nasal swab or the antibody test. And again, nobody's promoting the antibody test either because the literature changes on a constant basis about the utility of antibodies, how long an antibody for the coronavirus actually lasts in the human body. That varies. The most recent data coming out from the CDC was that even though you're tested negative for antibodies, but you've had the virus in the past, that you still could have some degree of immunity. And there's even more data coming out saying that that patients who are saying that they were reinfected with the coronavirus may not actually necessarily be true, and to be leery about that data as well. I have seen in my practice in the ICU that there are rapid PCR testing that have come back as either false negative or false positive, and either confirmed by a second PCR test that goes to another lab. but the sensitivity and specificity of those types of tests are still above 90%. So that's actually pretty good. But as far as the antigen test, so I think the concept of testing nursing home patients and visitors is a good idea, but I'm not necessarily a fan of the antigen test. I would favor the PCR, which is the typical test that we use as in the COVID sites, the nasopharyngeal swab. But I also think that if the mandate and recommendation is that everybody needs to wear masks and practice social distancing within these organizations, I think that that holds a lot of weight in general to decrease the transmission of the disease past any testing.
I also had read that these antigen tests, if you come down with the virus for less than 4 days, the test is very unreliable. After 10 days, it's much better. Again, I'm only commenting what I read. I don't have a medical background, but do you have any comment on that at all?
So the thing about the antigen test is you're actually relying on the human body to start to generate an immune response, and that's what we're testing for when you do an antigen test. A PCR test is you're actually detecting the virus itself, and that's why it's favored to do the PCR testing versus an antigen test, and it does take a couple of days for the body to generate a response enough to detect the antigen response, I should say, and then it's even longer to generate an antibody response for that test.
You started off mentioning Maine, what's happening there, and the issues that they have with people coming in from certainly Massachusetts and in other parts of New England. Speaking about another state, I went to Hampton Beach this past weekend. I have relatives that live in Hampton Beach, and I did walk along the boardwalk. I looked over at the beach. There were literally thousands and thousands of people on the beach. I did not see on the beach one mask. On the boardwalk, it was packed. I would say about 5% of the people wore masks, and the vast majority of these people are very, very young, of course. So I found that to be troubling. No one on the beach. They even had front page of the Globe, M Street and South Boston, the people on the beach and packed, and you don't see people wearing masks. So it is a concern, and there was an uptick in cases in certain parts of the country right now because people that should be wearing masks at times, but of course if you're in the water, are not. So I just want to mention that too. It was disturbing.
Yeah, it's interesting nonetheless because of, typically when you are on the beach and if you're within your group and you stay within your group, the transmission rate is low because the next group over is going to be 6 feet apart. And usually the recommendations are if you're leaving your area, not going to the water, but if you're going to a refreshment stand or to the bathroom, you're supposed to put the mask on, which is typically common sense. But it is interesting, though, the fact that the amount of people you're seeing on that beach, and yet you're still not seeing an uptick in numbers in New Hampshire or Maine, or even in Massachusetts down in Cape Cod. You're not seeing. Well, I should take that back for Cape Cod, minus the little house party that just recently happened in Cape Cod. Yeah, the COVID party in Chatham, I believe. So I'll take that part back, but I'll say New Hampshire and Maine. It's interesting and fascinating how this virus moves and why we don't see these uptick in numbers in those types of situations, but we're seeing it go crazy in other parts of the country.
buying another question. Actually, it's for those that are in the department and board right now. Virus vaccine. Comment? Update?
I mean, they're working on it. There's about 35 different vaccines they're developing right now. Patrick probably knows more about this than I do. He did talk about it the other night. But they're trying them now. They're in different phases for the FDA, going through their trials to make sure they're safe and effective. And they hope to have something soon. I think I'll pass off to Patrick to talk about the efficacy as well as the duration and effectiveness over time, as well as potential boosters and things like that that he has some knowledge on. So it's all you, Pat.
It's so basically the concerns with the vaccine right now are, so taking two steps back, the coronavirus is actually a common virus out there. Most of the strains cause the common cold. This strain just happens to be a unknown if it's new or um, just newly discovered strain. What trials have shown is that the human body only generates an antibody response to the coronavirus that lasts for about 6 to 8 months. This is the predicament that we're seeing for vaccine development. It doesn't mean that vaccines are out of the question for the coronavirus. The data that's coming out is actually promising and reassuring. I believe Pfizer is one of the companies that's almost in a sense working on a super vaccine to generate a super immune response to COVID-19 and perhaps give a little bit longer immunity. I think the theories behind all of this for vaccine development, will there need to be a required booster at some point to generate a further immune response? Will a single vaccine be enough to essentially drop down to really flatten the curve, that we get past all of this and it's kind of behind us? I think that's going to be will remain to be seen. I actually requested to be on a clinical trial or actually not to be on a clinical trial, but to be a recipient of one of the vaccines. I forget the name of the company in Cambridge that's looking for 30,000 volunteers. I have a feeling that they probably already met their 30,000 volunteers because I did not receive anything back from them. But it's even a month ago, the question was if. I think it's more so now when will a vaccine come about. Now we're hearing maybe the end of 2020, early 2021, which is from a vaccine standpoint, a modern day miracle to be able to push out a vaccine this quickly. And there's other drugs now in the works, and there's more and more literature coming out of different types of medications that can improve survival for critically ill patients, including the most recent one is systemic steroids. That's more so for patients who are moderate to severe in illness. The data is not really there for mild illness for patients to receive systemic steroids like prednisone or a derivative of that. But really, the only two medications out there right now are remdesivir and steroids that have been shown to decrease. Remdesivir decreases the symptom burden and the time to improvement. I believe it was from 14 days down to 11 days. But steroids were the only thing in clinical trial at this point to improve survival and to point of discharge. Those were the two markers they looked at: discharge from hospitalization.
Yeah, consistent with what you just said, Patrick, and thank you for that. that review. Looking at an article, I believe it was in the Wall Street Journal, it says the U.S. has agreed to pay Pfizer, as you mentioned, and BioNTech nearly $2 billion to secure 100 million doses of their experimental COVID-19 vaccines. And then it goes into some detail, and basically the initial test, phase 1, phase 2 test of these drugs look very, very good, very promising. And now they're going to scale it up to literally test many thousands of people, as you mentioned, some firm in Cambridge, 30,000 people. So what the government is doing is these tests look good. The government is getting these firms to a point that they are producing these drugs, so that if it looks like it's a go, we'll be ready. We won't have to wait for further production. So that's a lot of money, $2 billion. But if it can save lives, if it can end this coronavirus, then it's money well spent. So just want to pass that along to.
I think when it comes to when the vaccine is ready to come, poor Caroline will be very busy with trying to get this vaccine out. I believe I wouldn't be surprised if they target the two populations that'll probably be targeted first will be healthcare providers, and then the elderly population. I believe that those will probably be the first two out. But this could just be a one and done vaccine, that the purpose of it is that it's not going to give you lifelong immunity, but it might just be enough that we can knock this thing down without a recurrence, but the vaccine is available if there is such a recurrence.
Right.
Who knows? That's, time will tell.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Anything from Daphne?
Well, I want to thank Daphne of what she has done to help residents of North Andover, particularly our seniors. And she has, to the company that she works with, who's tough, provided a lot of food. I've seen her out there personally delivering the food. And good job, Daphne. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Not a problem, guys. Am I muted?
Nope, you're on.
Hi.
We can hear you.
Okay, great. No, nothing at all. It's just I know these times are hard for every single one of us, and you guys have been putting in a lot of hours and being frontline workers and everything else. I just want to say thank you for that. But just we also have to remember, after this pandemic, like Deanna said, just to remember to keep lifting each other up and so forth, and just being there and checking on our neighbors just to make sure that they're okay, especially the most vulnerable populations that don't have anyone, or just a simple phone call sometimes can make someone's day. So that's all I want to add, just for us to continue this movement.
Awesome. Thanks, Daphne. All right, Mr. Chairman, do you want to move on to the general updates now? I think his internet froze.
The CDC, can you hear me?
Yeah, you froze up for a second. We can hear you.
Yeah, a couple quick comments on the virus. The CDC estimates fatality rate is 0.65%. That number appears to be going down too, which is good news. However, the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation, that is IHME, that's at the University of Washington, they predict in excess of 200,000 total deaths by November the 1st. And that's a scary number. What is it right now? What's it, about 130,000+ right now? So
140.
140 right now. Yeah. So they're talking about actually it's 200,000 appears to be on the low side. So that's another 60, 70,000 people. And my final question, this is to you, Brian, on the virus and what effect it's had on our town. And Brian and I talked a little bit about it earlier today. And as I said earlier in the meeting, our town hall has been down since March the 16th. And when I was there today, I had to sign some paperwork. I was outside. Tony brought it to me, and quite a few people they try to get in. They didn't realize that we're still down. Now there are reasons. I know the reasons, but Brian, I'd like to hear from you. Why are we still down right now? When do you think we'll be open? I don't expect you to be held to that date and that time.
Don't
And
hold me to this.
and actually, I want to have these live audio video Board
Yeah.
of Health meetings. I don't like doing these virtual meetings.
Yep,
So
I think.
I'll just comment on that. Then you can talk about other stuff, and then I'm
All
done.
right. Brief comment on that is right now we're at 50% staff. So we're not all here. We're not allowed to have everybody here. We can't work at full staff due to the limitations by the governor's orders. So we don't have the people here to be able to work and let in the public to do business as normal. We just don't have the staff. We're not allowed to have that many people in anyway. So we are working on our reopening. We have plans in place. We will be opening up to the public in the near future. I do not have a set date. We are in constant contact with the town manager and the reopening group that meets and discusses it. And it is definitely in the works. We're just not there yet. I'm hoping that maybe when phase 3, step 2 is implemented at the state level, we'll be allowed to have more staff and more occupancy in indoor buildings. But as of right now, that's not the case. So we're kind of playing it by ear and taking it one step at a time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. General updates past COVID-19. Just want to let you guys know that we just re-signed our septic consultant for another 3-year contract. At the last Board of Health meeting in, I believe, May, we did agree to extend TEC's contract for being our third-party overseer for Wheelabrator and the waste energy plant. The Board of Health search is underway for Frank's replacement. Patrick and I have met with several candidates and talked to several on the phone. We have an amazing pool of applicants. It's going to be a super hard decision. The people we've talked to have been fantastic and definitely want to, volunteer their time and have amazing qualifications that they will offer to the board. So we're in the process of that right now. That should be wrapping up hopefully the beginning of next week. Stevens Pond has been closed for a few weeks due to high bacteria levels. The E. coli numbers have been through the roof for the past couple weeks. Obviously, so it'd be unsafe swimming. So that's been closed, and it's unfortunate because it's been so hot out and so nice, and there's such a lack of things to do that it would be nice to have that open. But unfortunately, right now it is not. And let's see. So still working with mosquito control. They're doing their surveillance. We haven't had any hits up here. There have been a couple of hits across the state for, I think, one for Tripoli and one for West Nile, but nothing has come our way yet. But I will definitely keep you guys in the loop with that. And then schools reopening. They're drafting their 3 different phase plans right now, which is in school learning, half in school, half remote, and then full remote. Those are due to the Department of Secondary Education July 31st. So those are due at the end of next week. And then once those are submitted to DESE, then there'll be more movement moving forward to determine what we're going to do for the fall school year. But that has not been determined yet. It's being worked on as we speak. And I've been involved with the school department, as well as Caroline has been involved on how to do it safely. So on that note, that is all that I have for general updates. I think we are pushing right past an hour for this meeting. I think it was a great meeting. Appreciate everybody coming out tonight. Having Deanna here was fantastic. It's always good to be able to hear her talk and get her perspective and input on things going on around town and in her area of expertise. So I'll pass it back to Joe to close the meeting out.
Any further comments? We need a motion.
Motion to close.
Second that motion.
That's a quorum right there. Thank you. And well, we certainly will have a meeting next month around this time. We might have a meeting before. I don't know. We will see.
Absolutely.
So thank
All
you,
right.
and
All right.
signing off.
Thank you.
All right.
Have a good
Bye now.
night.
Bye, everyone. Be safe.
Meeting adjourned. Bye, everybody.